Hello and welcome to my channel. With Lingering Echoes confirmed to be the next event coming to Arknights Global, it's time to take a look at the new operators coming in this event. I'll be introducing Ebenholz in this video, the new 6-star operator of Lingering Echoes. Ebenboy is a caster from the Mystic archetype. His normal attacks deal arts damage. If there are no targets in range, his basic attacks can stack up to 3 times and the next target will receive a big burst of arts straight into their face. As for his stats, he has extremely high attack, the highest out of all caster operators, but has higher than average DP cost and a long attack interval to balance it out. Moving on to his talents, Ebenholz's stored attacks now deals 35% more damage. The increased arts damage is decent, but nothing too game-changing. If there are constantly targetable enemies in range and Ebenholz is unable to store his attacks, the damage increase is essentially useless, which isn't the best in terms of consistency. Ebenholz can also store 1 extra attack that can only be used on elite or boss enemies. The main problem with using Mystic casters is the inability to control their stored attacks. Let's say Ebenholz has 3 stored attacks and a slug comes into range. Ebenholz will fire all 3 stored attacks even if only 1 is required, making it a waste of stored attacks, so having his extra stored attack reserved for elite or boss enemies only is a nice addition. As for his second talent, if there are no enemies near him, Ebenholz's attacks deals an additional instance of arts damage. The damage scaling is based on a percentage of his attack, a very straightforward talent that can increase his overall damage output, a decent talent. Next up are his skills. Ebenholz's first skill changes his attack range to a straight line and reduces his attack interval by 83% at Mastery 3. His attacks also deal 50% of attack as arts damage. While this skill has a low SP cost, it has an equally short duration. Not the best skill to use in his kit. I wouldn't recommend putting masteries into this one. Now, if you think this video is helpful, a little sub to the channel will be awesome. I'll be releasing more guides like this soon. Moving on to his second skill, things start to get a little interesting. Ebenholz will immediately use up all existing stored attacks and add 1 to the total amount. He will then summon remnants of the past onto deployable tiles in range when the skill is charged. To make this easier to visualize, if Ebenholz has 2 stored attacks, he will summon 2+1 remnants when the SP bar is filled. If Ebenholz has no stored attacks, he will summon 0+1 remnants when the SP bar is filled. When an enemy walks close to the remnants, they will explode, dealing a burst of arts damage and dragging them towards itself with moderate force. The remnants have a lifespan of only 30 seconds and will disappear when the time limit is up. This skill is extremely dependent on how many stored attacks Ebenholz has. By the time the SP bar is filled, he can summon as much as 5 remnants and as little as only 1, and since his stored attacks are dependent on the enemies, the amount of remnants he summons can be extremely inconsistent, but overall, this skill is great for AFK strategies. Next up, we have his third skill. Ebenholz gets an attack and attack speed buff and boosts the effect of his first talent by 140%. His first talent increases the damage of his stored attack by 135%. When his third skill is activated, the damage is further increased. With all these damage scaling, Ebenholz's stored attacks hits like a truck. With the increased attack speed, Ebenholz is able to store charges much faster. Since this skill also changes his attacks to only targeting elite or boss enemies, which fulfills the requirements of his first talent. With all 4 stored charges and his third skill activated, Ebenholz can instantly wipe out a huge chunk of their HP. The biggest problem with this skill is, again, its reliance on stored attacks. Without them, Ebenholz's damage isn't too impressive against boss enemies. Thankfully, there is a solution to this problem, and that involves using the funny bird. After Ebenholz fires his burst of damage, Kafka is deployed to put the enemy to sleep. Since Ebenholz is unable to target sleeping enemies and with the help of the attack speed buff, he can quickly store up attacks. When the sleep duration ends, the boss will get hit in the face with another nuke. You can also make use of other sleep appliers like Sora and Blemishine. This skill has a low SP cost and a long duration. It can also be deactivated manually. Lastly, we have his modules. The first tier updates his archetype's trait to storing 4 stored attacks instead of 3. This is quite a big upgrade given the fact that his second and third skills are dependent on the number of stored attacks he has. With this upgrade, Ebenholz now has the potential to place more summons with his skill 2 and deal bigger damage with his third, an awesome upgrade. The second and third tier of this module improves his first talent by increasing the damage dealt by his stored attacks, which is another upgrade for his third skill's damage output. As for the stat increase, Ebenholz gets more attack and attack speed, a decent module to unlock. Ebenholz's second module gives him a new trait, giving him increased attack speed when he has stored attacks. With this module, Ebenholz is now able to charge his stored attacks much faster starting from the second. As for the other tiers, it updates his second talent to dealing additional arts damage with his attacks if there are enemies in the 8 surrounding tiles, and increasing the damage scaling of his attacks if there aren't any, another decent module thanks to the increased charging speed of his stored attacks. The stat increase gives him more HP and attack. So, should you pull and build Ebenholz? To be honest, it's really difficult to recommend him to casual players due to how gimmicky his kit feels, but with the help of proper management and support from other operators, Ebenholz can shine in the toughest of situations. Is he a must-have operator? Definitely not, but if you enjoy using gimmicky operators, Ebenholz will be a fun addition to your roster. For casual or meta players, I wouldn't advise pulling for him, especially with Arknights' 3rd anniversary banner coming in a few months' time. So, will you be pulling for Eben Boy? Tell me in the comments below, and that's all from me. Bye.